Because I made fun of his face.
Well,
You know, bought a hat, trying to stay warm, keep my ears, walk in. Everything I hear.
what'd you do with Mo?
Huh?
What'd you do with Mo?
You don't talk.
So do you have it on for 12 hours?
What?
Yeah.
No, it's shut, the light's on now.
Yeah, no, but do you have it turned on so
I have to turn it off.
for 12 hours?
I have to turn it
Oh,
off.
okay, good.
Think that's gonna be enough?
You never know.
Hey, you on your way? Okay. Oh, you're here, okay. Good enough.
Heard him answer your call.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Catch any fish? No. Do you go to that shack? It's gold.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Very cool.
The fish is red.
Yeah. One good choice.
Oh, it's good to go. That's a good idea.
It always seems to rain up here, between the line.
Might save me money. Your daughter's always calling me for money. If it's off.
They know better, I don't have any, so.
So why that make it up?
And it's on this side, see the
That
red.
one is on.
Oh, yeah, there it is.
Just can't see it.
Oh.
There's plenty of, I think, giving it the finger now.
Have to.
No, I think it's a broadcast station, MCI had a TV station,
I
broadcast.
added it about 6 months ago.
Oh, great.
Replay.
Okay,
Yeah, that's another story.
And then we had,
Yeah,
used to have
tell me.
a reporter from a newspaper here.
Von
Vaughn
knows.
is the
Von
password.
knows
What
what
happened on this and
I didn't bring my computer tonight.
some accountability
I don't remember.
for the,
It's like Pittsfield with a 1 or something like that.
There was one of those that was, yeah. I don't know.
newspaper.
And it's online anytime somebody wants to look. Go to the town website, and it stays there forever again.
I see it
Do you know what it is?
Recording these minutes.
Yeah.
Do you know the password?
For what?
the Wi-Fi.
For that?
Wi-Fi.
At
Wi-Fi.
home? Oh.
This, here.
Oh.
No, he
What-
doesn't.
What's the password?
He doesn't know.
I don't know, I left my computer. I think I remember a single password I had.
I want to say, Ron, are you trying to get in? Is that?
Trying to get on.
I'm logged on. I don't remember the password. My computer stored it.
Isn't
Oh,
it-
I can get you to that.
Yeah, you can get the
And
password.
isn't it Pittsfield?
Do
that
Apple and
capital
do
P?
Apple and spacebar. Click in spacebar. Can you cancel out of that for a second?
I'll get it
Then
into
do
the
it
next
with network.
What's this big screen?
Apple and.
Yeah, like these computer experts, they tell you, you go through and change all your passwords every
Oh, yeah.
every, you know, a few months, couple months or something. And don't write them down, so they don't want, you know.
And then we'll show you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that.
Yeah, they're all there.
We've got an app where you use Safari. All your passwords are always, you know, being logged in on.
Bring your computer.
I know.
We use Safari.
It's so unlike you.
No, I do the command.
Most of my passwords are basically farm equipment and stuff like that, so it's not, the general public have a tough time figuring them out.
Oh, that's what's going on. It will come up. There you go. Keychain access just came up.
I know.
it's just continuing. I'm gonna get called right now.
You have to do it quickly.
Take 3.5-inch floppy.
In the day, you know, they make some money.
But then if you go there, you can go
Well,
to.
I don't know if you do see some.
You guys all ready?
Gotta learn. But you can go through there and you'll be able to log in.
If you wanna walk-
Password, it will show you all your passwords.
Would you welcome me here on this nice, warm spring evening? Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of January the 28th. I will take a motion.
Make a motion to approve minutes. I'll second.
Joyce and Tom. Any questions?
Move the motion.
Bruce?
All in favor?
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? We're supposed to actually say it so that it gets recorded.
I do have a clarification on the ones that said that I specifically focuses on training, and I think it means specifically.
I made a mistake spelling, I can't believe it. I will fix it, thank you.
Yeah,
You
no
can't
problem.
get away with it, Steve.
Okay, we have no public hearing tonight, but we have some new business. And one of the things that I talked with Steve about today was I think you're going to find on your desk a sheet of paper that kind of looks like this, that has a motion on it already. I'm going to try, depending on what the action is and what the activity is, I'm going to try to have at least a couple samples of motions available to make it a little bit easier so that by the time we come to vote, we'll have something spelled out and understandable. So that's one of the things that you're going to see tonight. And we'll talk about a couple of other things later on. We have a request for the reestablishment of a non-conforming use, commercial to agricultural farming on the tax map. The request comes in from Katie Wedgepole. Is that how you pronounce it?
Close enough.
What'd you call them? Close enough.
Wedipole?
Wedipole?
Winnable,
Okay, that's good.
Were you gonna make the motion before you spoke about it?
Well, one of the things we can do is we can actually put the motion on the table first, and then that way, then it opens it up for discussion, which is the normal way that you, most of the time that you do Robert's Rules of Order, that you put a motion before it's actually up for discussion.
I make a motion to allow the reestablishment of an agricultural use for the lot of tax map 11, lot 2.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Now it's open for discussion. Questions, comments? Steve, you want to give a little background here?
Well, either I can do that or Tom, Jim, or Jock can. Basically, I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, the place has been sold pending or continuing on getting planning board approval to have an agricultural use on that site. It at one time was a farm, had horses, and there is an existing barn and so forth. And so at some point in history, that was changed from a C2 area into the C. Excuse me, it was changed from C4 into C2, which is a commercial. I forget the exact term for that commercial. Commercial use anyway. And so our ordinance has a provision, and we have that information in front of you, to reestablish a use like that if it doesn't make sense to use it for the use that it was intended. Well, that land is, a bunch of, some of it anyway, is wetlands, and we ran into that problem when those storage buildings were committed. So, and it's along there in the country. It seems to me that to make more sense to use it for farmland than it would be something where it would require a building and you'd have to get involved with dealing with wetlands and so forth. Did I leave anything out, gentlemen?
Well, they're not talking a big farm, they're just talking a family farm, have a cow, maybe a big critter, some chickens or something maybe. You know, and
Don't you?
we're not really asking to have it changed anyway, just have it so they can have some animals, and later on, if somebody comes along with $500,000 wants to buy it for commercial, I'm sure they'll probably sell it, you know.
Well, what it would do is it would allow the reestablishment of that use.
Right.
Where it's already, it's been continuously been farmed for quite a number of years anyways. Is it really changing use? The only thing, you know, there hasn't been any animals in the barn recent years, but as far as...
Well, that's, another use it's been hayed and,
Right.
yeah. Well, that's a possibility. Haying would be an agricultural use.
Right, yeah, so like, essentially, you know, the buildings haven't had animals in them. You know, that's the only real difference that might change. As far as agricultural use on the land, I don't see anything changing from what it's been for the last, 50, 60 years or more.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was, that may be right, but if you vote to allow, that will allow the reestablishment of that use, then there's no question.
I was just questioning if it actually had to be changed back to agriculture, where it's...
I think what Steve is saying, it would be cleaner to do that.
And it's changed on paper, right?
Right.
Yeah, so just gotta change it.
So we just need to change it back.
It's a simple thing, it doesn't need to be recorded. The only, it must be recorded in the minutes of the meeting, but it doesn't have to be recorded with the registry of deeds or anything like that. It just gives us the option to reestablish a use in a building or anything like that in town if all of a sudden it's vacant for more than a year, loses its grandfather.
Okay, so you're saying instead of grant a variance, we go back to a...
Go back to the way it was, exactly.
So where exactly is this? Is this south of the Illwire Road?
No,
No.
this is right here, coming out of town, right where, across from Frost Mobile Station.
That piece of land there?
Yeah,
It's
behind the storage buildings.
Isn't that wetlands?
Everything in Pittsfield wetlands.
I mean, no, literally, you can't walk without boots on.
No, it depends on the season, on the time of year. But it goes all the way up to the McCarthy Road that goes down to the treatment plant.
But Steve, you said we're only talking about this 45-acre piece right here,
Yeah.
not this 385-acre piece?
That looks small at that scale, but most of it is, let me show you on the map over here.
Basically a field anyway, basically, it's just a little bit of woods.
This area here, where it's white, you're allowed agricultural use. But this, you want to talk about this green section right here, basically? And so that's the area. It goes down here, and then part of it down here would be in shoreline zoning. But that's governed by the shoreline zoning ordinance, and it does allow a residential use. Excuse me, a commercial, agricultural use. But once you get past that line there, you're not in shoreline zoning anymore.
So how many cattle are we talking about?
Said just-
Milk cows.
These people are looking to start, they just want to move here for a simple lifestyle. They plan to raise a beef critter, maybe have a cow and some chickens, just a family farm. That's all they're interested in.
Is there a difference between just a family farm and more?
No.
No.
There's a letter from these people in your packet.
Yeah, I saw that.
They're chickens. With chickens, there'll be a difference.
with chickens.
Potentially. We have a chicken ordinance.
We do have a chicken
We have a
ordinance,
chicken.
but we don't have a cattle ordinance.
But you won't have, this piece of property, you won't have to, we won't have to permit chickens in there because they'll be allowed, because you've
Because the zone is
re-established.
agricultural.
Yeah, re-established as agricultural.
So is there a limit as to how many cattle can be kept on that property?
No.
No,
So if you can go from, say, a small family farm where you just slaughter a cow every year and then enlarge that to 100 cattle
yeah, that's good.
without question, would that require coming back to the board and
No.
discussing further?
No,
They'd be under shoreland zoning though, in terms of
Yeah.
how close to the water they could graze and everything else.
And how's that get enforced?
I would enforce that.
Do they have to fence?
They have to follow the rules. I don't know what there is for a fence there now, but they would have to follow fencing off a certain distance from that stream that runs down through there.
In personal experience, I would say they wouldn't have too many, because
Post all those cows probably.
the more you get, the more everything you have to deal with.
Do you know that by experience, no?
Yeah, unfortunately.
Well, we all know what cows smell like. And have the neighbors been notified? I mean, is there,
It's not a requirement.
it's not a requirement?
I'm a neighbor, I'm okay.
You're okay?
I'm
Good.
putting my next lot over.
He's gonna have the greenest grass around his
The
building.
cows complain less than other people.
Yeah.
In the packet of material, there was something that Steve had put together. Anybody have any questions about any things that he identified here?
That answered my questions.
Any other questions or concerns? Are we ready to vote? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes.
Well, I don't know if we've answered the question. The question was, would farm pasture use be less harmful to the environment than commercial use that the site is zoned for?
Just voted, didn't we?
Yeah, we already voted.
Yeah?
Okay.
You voted without all members voting.
I did not vote.
Oh, you didn't vote?
No,
So-
no, because I don't know if we've answered the question.
Well, the majority voted for it, right?
Yes, they did, but this was the question put to here, okay, that we have to consider which would be more harmful to the environment. Did you not want to answer that question?
Yeah, but this was part of the discussion before the vote that we should have had. What you're saying now is the discussion that we should have had before we had this vote. If you want to go according to Robert's rules or any kind of order. You know what I'm
Okay.
saying? When Jan asked for any questions, and he said if there's no more questions, then we'll take a vote. That was the vote. Kinda like a-
Do you feel satisfied that we answered the question?
I do, because, you know, it wasn't too long ago, I'd go over, and Dino was raising cows, Dino Ross was raising cows, right?
He still has cows
Yeah.
just a quarter mile away.
Yeah.
Actually, adjoining the way.
Right.
So, and they've been there for as long as I can remember. So I don't see why it's gonna make a difference to have a, you know, just be closer to the road, that's all.
And it said the question really is if farm pasture use would be less harmful to the environment than a commercial use. You know, how can we answer that? It would depend on what the commercial use would be,
I
you know,
think
whether
that was
they'd be
it.
emitting,
Comparing to what it is now,
right.
that's what I assumed it to be.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, right now, it's just barren. There's nothing
It's
there.
I mean,
cow.
what it was, most recently.
And first of all, if they only have 1 or 2 animals, they're not gonna be pasturing.
And the horses across the street, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, I know that there's been cows in that area for as long as I can remember. I haven't been up on that road to see Dino's cows lately, but I know there's been.
You ought to watch, I go up there sometime and see how.
Okay, motion is passed. Moving on. Steve, do you have anything else at this point?
I do, just let me make a note here before I forget to do it. I don't know. But speaking of not having to sign anything, the Klein Smith was going, at 3:30 today, we're going to have the copies of the prints that we have to sign for the approval from the last meeting. And they didn't do it. I don't know why. They didn't show, and time ran out, and I looked at it, it was after 5 o'clock. So I'm going to have to gather one at a time or something before the month is up with you guys to get those papers signed
This is on the boat launch.
on the boat. Yeah.
Do we have to be here all together, or can we?
No,
do
we
it
can
in
do
the town
it.
office?
I wanted to do it tonight because it was easier for you people, but that didn't happen. I apologize. Okay, we have here tonight Mark Mancini. Did I pronounce it right, Mark?
So we're all set?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Go make a phone call. Send a check.
And he would like to produce a product at 113 North Lancey Street called Mead, and also do wine, processed wine as well. Do you brew wine? I'm not sure. I don't know what the word is. But, and so he wanted to have what we considered a preliminary site plan evaluation. And he wanted to get the opinion of the board if they thought that that business would need a site plan review and what they thought of the idea of doing that. Anything to add, Mark?
No, I think I don't know unless there's more I need to talk about with the process itself, but you were just trying to check to see if, since that's already retail and office spaces, whether there'd be any reason why making mead there would alter that in any way.
I do have a question or two, though. Okay. So, are you going to be selling it from there?
Yes.
Are you planning on serving it also? Will there be tables?
No. This is just going to be the brewing area, and the big thing is for mead, like wine, it's got to age.
Okay.
So, I mean, it'd have to sit for 8 months to a year before I can even start doing any retail process of it. So for the beginning part, it would be my office space to get the business going and an area to brew and store.
So
That is in the-
down the road, a year from now, would you be expanding in any way that there would be any issues with parking or anything like that?
Not that I would see. And I say that area that I'm looking at, it would not be one for a tasting room, bringing people in and out, with traffic going through. It would really be the office space and kind of the headquarters, and then in a year, if we're going to do a tasting room, I'd have to look at other options for that.
That area is in C1 district.
It's fermenting honey into what the government calls wine. It's the same process as wine. It's different. It's the oldest alcoholic beverage. First thing they fermented, but you use water, honey, and yeast. Then anything else you want to add for flavoring.
So no heat or anything like that's required, it's just.
No, it would. I mean, I make it with the hottest that comes out of my tap right now, because you don't want it super hot. And, otherwise, if it gets too hot, you kill all the beneficial parts of the honey. So you want to make sure that you get it warm enough so they all mix, but you want to be able to have the good parts of the honey in there. It gives it a better flavor and just more benefits of the meat itself.
Gee, I'm already ready for the tasting.
This kind of reminds me of a commercial on TV. Isn't there a commercial on TV trying to serve meat?
Yeah, I've started seeing those lately.
Bud Light.
Yeah, apparently Bud Light wins.
Bud Light, yes, that's what it is.
So they must be drinking the wrong
Oh, the
stuff.
honey, yeah, the honey's delivered to the wrong place.
So, for transparency, I'm the manager and owner of that building. Having looked through it, there's no change. I mean, the thing that would come down to, there's no change of size, no change of use. It's basically an intensity piece where, we will be in front of we're probably gonna have another applicant in front of the planning board in the next few months for an establishment that might be more impactful in terms of traffic, but even with the ones that we're talking about, it's nowhere near. We used to have 4 Chimbro training rooms in there between foot traffic and driving traffic. There's the impact that they're looking at is pretty minimal.
Does that require any like state inspections or anything like that?
Well, they have to get a business license and a
Yeah.
federal, right?
Yeah, business license, federal, state, and final town approval for it all, so.
One of the things that need to
That's who.
be, excuse me, one of the things that needs to be investigated is how does this apply to Maine Uniform Building and Energy Code? It becomes a mixed-use building, I believe, or we've got to address that anyway.
Is it a change? But is it a change because they've had the previous tenant in there before the robotics team that's in there was Amazato Foods that did food preparation in a various similar
I didn't know that.
pieces to. I mean that the history of that building is that in the mid '80s. To go back, because we might as well go through the whole thing since we're going to be talking about it a couple times potentially. In the mid '80s, my parents, Pete Carroll Vigue, Mike Findler, and Mindy Lovett bought that building from the town after it closed down. My grade was one of the last to go to school there. You probably didn't. That was before you moved, right? That got closed down. They bought it for redevelopment. So in the mid '80s, when I was like 9 or 10, we were ripping plaster out of that place in the summertime. It got renovated as a business incubator, so a number of businesses in town. Tax Pros started there. Mike Lynch started there.
Loretta's, I think.
Loretta, yeah. Chimbro's always, Chimbro has had space, not had space, had space, not had space in there. There are engineering firms, a few other places. Luann's Tap, like Luann's Dance was there for a while. The initial plan was to potentially have a restaurant in the basement of that facility when they originally did all of the planning. There are drains and everything that are set up for it. So over time, the use is basically, it's zoned commercial, downtown commercial, right? That's the
C1, yeah.
Which is zoned for restaurants, which is zoned for a variety of different pieces.
Retail sales, that's the biggest one probably to hang our hat on.
Yep.
In the comprehensive plan, it said that we should review growth districts to ensure that they permit or encourage mixed-use development, especially in the C1 Town Center District. I think that's something we can really hang our hats on.
Yep.
Because it's a mixed use and I thought to encourage that.
Yeah. So 2 years ago, I offered to buy that from my parents. In their infinite wisdom, they decided to give it to my siblings and I. So I have to manage that. So buying it, I don't know which one's more challenging. So the goal of that building has been to help revitalize the next level of economic development in the downtown Pittsfield area. So we've had rooms that have been vacant, holding it off specifically for businesses that will add to the value of the downtown. So we have fiber broadband that we've been overpaying for a while with the goal to seed it for whatever that might serve in the future, as well as to look at the types of businesses that will sustain in Pittsfield moving forward. So agriculture obviously is a big piece of that. Value-added agriculture, as Mark is doing, is a big piece of that. And InSource, our headquarters is in that building. My wife Holly just opened a yoga studio in there. We've got some advertising stuff that's going on in there. So that's been the goal, is to help support those businesses moving up. And so yeah, we're pleased that Mark's connected with us for the potential for that.
So Steve, what are you?
Will it require any reconstruction or anything?
Then we may redo some partitions in that space, but there's nothing nothing that's gonna be of, I mean, they're gonna have to go for a business I mean, so you know, I mean, this is really outside the jurisdiction of the planning board unless it were to determine that there was some intensity increase for that space, which I think would be a hard threshold to cross. But he's gonna have to have a they're gonna have a business permit with the town, so that would come into fire marshal, Steve going through, doing walkthrough, fire, all of that other stuff, so.
So there's
Lighting.
There's going to be an inspection of that space regardless of what we decide now.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that happens all the time. We don't usually, when we didn't have Holly come into the planning board to do a yoga studio in her space up there, right? But she did get a business permit.
Yeah.
The laying in front of you is section 2 of our site plan review ordinance. And I've highlighted number 4 and number 5, which that kind of would pertain to your decision, I would think, as whether or not you need to have a site plan review done.
Was there a decision, you said there was a restaurant or a food service in there before?
There was the plans for it. I mean, so it was we build it and they'll come.
Right.
Plans.
But there was you mentioned some, like a food prep or something like that was
Yep.
already in there at some point?
Yep.
Okay. So was there an approval when that business went in that said?
I don't know if
for food
Amazon has
prep?
ever had a business.
I don't
or
know.
not.
I wasn't aware that it was ever there or when it left or whatever.
Because to me, if there was already, food prep in that space, it's not really a new use, right? It's just reactivating an old use.
Right. The only thing, as the planning, and I'm standing off the planning board, as the planning board, the pieces that we have to look at are all of the pieces that we look at in a site plan review, which the only ones, because there's no new structures, because there, a variety of things would be waste management, would be traffic, and would be anything having to do with the public services, water and sewer essentially, or electricity to the building. So, how many you're using how many gallons of water potentially weekly?
Weekly? Probably would be about 100 gallons for the year.
Right.
Kind of deal depending on how many batches you make, but I say there's really little waste afterwards. It sits, it ferments, and there's a little bit, but nothing more that you wouldn't put down your own sink at your house. And then any of the fruit byproducts I would bring back to my farm anyway.
So that's the bar that we have to pass on that, if I'm not mistaken, is on number 5 is basically it increases the intensity of on or off-site impacts, which like traffic, essentially traffic waste and utilities.
And that doesn't drain into the pond anymore, right?
That one never did. That was our highlight.
No, the river, yes.
No, they go to
The river, okay.
The river is far
flowing.
flows a bit. Steve, what would you like to see from the planning board? Anything?
Well, this is a preliminary meeting, so there's nothing to vote about, but the only thing I can suggest is you decide whether or not you think it needs a site plan review or not.
Discussion, motion, anything?
No, we don't really need no motions. At the level of what I heard, I don't think there's anything we really need to be too concerned about.
I agree with that.
Sounds good.
Yep.
Okay.
So we're talking about just the meat business. The other business you spoke of, we haven't addressed yet.
Yeah, we don't have a plan yet for it.
Yeah, I just found out about it today, as a matter of fact, so I haven't had a chance to work with it.
Yeah, so that there's full transparency and that it's not an innuendo. So Outland Farm has run into infrastructure issues regarding their farm brewery that they have planned for out on Phillips Corner Road. And as they ran into some of the challenges with that, they had reached out to me just asking about what had happened to the old Bouffard's wallpaper / pharmacy building on Sebascook Street. and Main Street. And I explained to them that those folks don't want to sell, and they were challenged with some of the infrastructure challenges. And I said, we have 3-phase power, we have 3,000 square feet that we've been holding back for the right opportunity. And so they're looking at potentially renovating the addition, which is I don't know how many people have been in that building, but the front portion's the original building, and then in the back with the flat roof where the cell tower is, are 4 classrooms, 2 on each floor, that Chimbrow Training was in. And so they're looking at renovating the first floor 2, one for a tasting room and one to brew in, and then to utilize spaces upstairs for stuff that would be similar to the uses in those spaces. But due to there will be some pieces there in terms of water sewer that they're talking with the town about, as far as traffic, which again, the intensity for when they're using it isn't any different. It's probably less than it was when we had 4 Chimbrow training rooms plus all of the various offices that are in there. So it's basically solid waste and traffic and weight. Yeah, so there's
Is that
water.
Something in the works, you're saying, or?
There is preliminary phases. So, but once they get to a point that is a potential, like the timeline on it is pretty critical, is they have a goal of opening by the bicentennial.
Were they gonna have a tasting room at Lansing Street, or?
That's the plan. Depends upon the planning board, etc. So just to put it there, because I imagine it'll be a discussion and.
So they will have to come before the planning board?
Yes. Yep. To discuss. Well, I guess that becomes the question, right? Is that if they come in with if something from Scott Noble saying that it's not going to tax the water system and the solid waste isn't going to be significantly more than the building already has, and the traffic is similar to traffic that's been there before, again, it becomes a question of whether there's no change of use from a zoning perspective. So the question becomes whether it changes the basic nature and existing use in a manner that increases the intensity of on or off site. So that's going to have to be the consideration of that, is going to be.
It will be a restaurant, right?
It'll be a tasting room. So.
Well,
Yeah.
the memo I got today, the email I got today, talked about a restaurant.
Potentially.
And so that would clearly be a change of use. It would, it would require addressing probably the restroom facilities, that type of thing.
Something to look forward to.
Yeah.
So we have Bud Light and real beer. Uneven, never mind. Okay, so that one's coming down tonight, and that will be fairly soon, I think. Vaughn indicated they would like to do something during the bicentennial celebrations.
Right. Again, this is still in the tentative plan. There's nothing on paper yet.
So there's no action required on that tonight, just to be thinking about that. So, the only other things that I would bring up tonight, number one, I've been talking with Catherine, and actually Ron and I, unbeknownst to each other, made some comments at the council meeting the other night. And I think what we're going to be doing is we're going to do, even though it's 2013, we're still going to put in place a review of the town report. And so, if you've taken a look at that, it's rather intense, it's rather thick, and so forth. So, in talking with Catherine today, and I have a witness, Steve was there too, the comprehensive plan, to have that sent to maybe KBCOG or somebody first, to have them review it, and then get their recommendations back, and then take a look at what those recommendations are and seeing what changes we would suggest, and then that's got to go to the council as well for their approval. The second part of that discussion is to do a community survey and either do a mass mailing or something, sneak it in people's mailboxes or somehow, but some kind of a survey in terms of what do the people in town really want to see. In terms of, and I'm looking at it not Pittsfield yesterday and today, but my approach is Pittsfield for tomorrow. And so to do a survey, try to get those results back sometime before the summer, begin to correlate that because that can also help in updating the comprehensive plan. Personally I have an ulterior motive there, and that motive is that if we can get something like that done and get it written up, we can stick it in the time capsule and in November, and then 50 years from now, somebody's going to pull it out and say, wow, look at how smart these people were, or look at what we didn't get accomplished. But anyhow, to do kind of a survey, and as part of that process too, maybe even have some community forums where people can kind of come in and express, some of the things that are on the charts and some of the things that they would like to see. So it could potentially be a busy few months, but I think that's something that is probably worth taking a look at in terms of updating it, because even though it's only a few years ago, times are changing. And I think to review the comprehensive plan right now probably isn't a bad idea. And I'll admit it's a bias that I have, but I think that the fact that Catherine was pretty supportive of it, wasn't she, Steve?
Yeah.
Which really sorry, Catherine, which really kind of surprised me a little bit. Let's take advantage of that and get some discussion going. So those are some things that we'll be talking about.
Actually, Simone.
No, go ahead, Ron.
We had talked last year in the fall about reviewing the process of application for approvals for building permits and all that.
That's on the list too.
And I'm wondering if the board would be okay with is if I sat down with Steve over the next month or so and just sort of review what the absolute requirements according to the law are as far as process, so that when we get to that point where we're maybe making some changes, we understand what do we have to do in terms of applications, processes, and fees and all that kind of stuff. And then where can we tinker a little bit. So if that's okay with the board, I'd like permission to do that.
Because even in our process, there's a lot of redundancy
Yeah.
that we can consolidate.
Yeah.
So I think this is a good time to use this time to meet, and Brent, you can talk to that. I mean, what you had to go through for your own project. I think I heard some grumbling from that side of the room. So, I think, if it's needed, that's one thing, but is there a way to present it? So, and there are a couple of other things out there. We will also be getting at least 4, the council, there's a council committee on ordinances, and they have 4 ordinances that will be coming to us also that we will have to take a look at. And then approve, and then send back to the council, and then we'll have the hearings and so forth. So we may not have a lot of projects in terms of people coming asking for certain things, but internally we'll have some things that we need to do. Yes, ma'am.
Jen, what I was thinking about is, we're trying to think of ways to bring the community in. I think that putting the meetings online like we're doing, it gives them a reason to go see what's going on. And I think that if we can spark enough interest in going to the site, maybe we could actually develop an area where people can make comments, suggestions, and some will be good, some won't be, but, again, it kind of gives them that option of being able to express themselves.
Yeah, a lot of people are watching.
Mm-hmm.
the council meetings and everything else that's held down here.
Obviously.
And I think, that's a plus. We may not always like what we hear, but at least we're beginning to get a little bit more interest in certain things. So I think, if we can do, it's still in the growing stages, so, but that's a plus, no question about it. And I think that working with Michael, who works in the office, maybe we can set up something to provide some routes for feedback to us other than walking down the bread aisle at Bud's Shop and Save. So, which works sometimes, but. Any other questions, comments, issues?
Is there intention in the comprehensive plan process in terms of modifying implementation? I guess would be a question. I mean, we've had a pretty thorough comprehensive plan, and this body has referred to it as a wish list at times, and Santa's a list that we might not ever get. So I guess the question becomes, in the comprehensive plan process, is there going to be something that's done through that is going to push the town to utilize that comprehensive plan in its planning processes beyond what we are now? Is that the expectation, that there would be more ordinances that would come out of it, that there would be more other pieces that come out of it, or is it just to update it based on the 7 years or so since it was last?
Well, I think part of the issue, I mean, it's kind of a chore to read. And so I think if things can be made so it's a little bit more understandable, so that people get a better handle on what they can do and what they need to do. So yeah, I'm not sure there's going to necessarily be more ordinances out of it. Now, I'm going to take a chance here because I've only heard this from one time when I spoke with Catherine 2 weeks ago. One of the purposes that the state required communities to do comprehensive plans was because at that point in time, and this goes back 100 years maybe, not quite, but this goes back some time, the purpose of the comprehensive plan was there was going to be some money available to towns who did these so that they could do things in their community. The challenge was that that money never really surfaced. And so a lot of towns went through the process, but nothing ever happened because they never got the financial support to implement some of the things that the towns put in their comprehensive plan. As a result of that, there are some things in the comprehensive plan, and maybe Steve can address this. I don't know because I haven't been involved that long, but there are some things in the comprehensive plan that had never really been implemented because there was never any money to follow it up. So I think the other thing is to take a look at what are some of those things, and does it make sense to keep them part of it, or are there some other things that can happen? But I also think, the comprehensive plan needs to be something that's readable, that if somebody is thinking about bringing a business to the community, we can hand them the spiral booklet and say, this is where we want to be a few years from now, and give them a chance to read it, but we want to make sure that it's something that they can understand, as well as part of the discussions that would take place here. So, Vaughn, I'm not sure I answered your question, but I think it's to look at some of the mechanics as well, or are there some things we can improve. Doesn't mean we're going to have more ordinances. In fact, there may be less. No guarantee there.
I think, to speak to Vaughn's point, one of the things that I noted as I was reading through the comprehensive plan is that there are a lot of this should happen statements, right? Like, we should communicate more regularly, or we should encourage this to happen, or we should do this to ensure that this is going to happen. But a lot of these are policies, like we are going to do this, but it doesn't say what the metric is, it doesn't say how it's going to be accomplished. But what it does do is it lists the bodies that are assigned for implementation, right? So for example, in Historic Resources Policy 2, the town will prevent disturbance of archaeological resources by regulating development in areas likely to contain those resources. Implementation, planning board, ongoing, CEO, near term. But it doesn't, so because it has an implementation body, what a strategy might be is to say, once we've set these policies in place, it gets kicked over to those bodies, and those bodies set up, instead of comprehensive plans, a strategic plan with SMART goals that list metrics and how it's going to be implemented and what the timeline is, and, right? So that it becomes a wish list and then a project to make that wish list occur.
Can I say something?
Pardon?
Can I say something?
Sure.
As far as I understand, the comprehensive plan is something we are required to have by the
Correct.
state.
That's correct.
It is not, it's not an ordinance. It is not enforceable. It does not have the force that an ordinance has. Any part of the comprehensive plan can be made into an ordinance. And the comprehensive plan should guide our crafting of any ordinance as long as it's practical and practicable. But if you read through the whole comprehensive plan, it doesn't always agree with itself. It's like reading the Bible. So I mean, there's a lot to consider,
But I think
we have to have it, and
Yeah, the state had to approve it. When we
yeah,
did
the
it,
state has
we
to
had
approve
send
it,
away
and
from the state.
and like I said, but it does not have the force of law.
Right.
But it does hopefully begin to set out some goals, as Ron's alluded to, and some things that, some strategies. And I think if you have attended recent council meetings and been part of other discussions, there hasn't been a real picture of drawn for the future. And so maybe if we have a document that is a little bit more realistic to work with, and as Ron has pointed out, certain groups are responsible for certain things. Yeah, the enforcement comes because we want to, not because we have to.
If we're going to wind up rebuilding our comprehensive plan, that's a time-consuming project.
Well, that's why we're gonna send it down to KVCOG first and have them take a look at it and say, these things are good, these things, why are they here? Send it back, and then we can kind of work from there. Because I don't think that process needs to be as time-consuming as maybe it has been in the past, because that was the first shot. I mean, I can whip up some mean scrambled eggs right now, but the first time I did it, it was a mess.
Well, this comprehensive plan was built on a previous comprehensive plan.
Yeah.
It was built on a previous comprehensive plan.
But times have changed.
So will there be, Janet, you're gonna bring to the planning board motion that we engage in that public process based on KVCOG's
Yes.
set of the plan?
Let them take their shot at it first, see what it looks like, see what their recommendations are, and then bring it back. I mean, if they say, this looks good, and struggle with it, then we'll talk about that. But if they come back and say, here are some things that you may want to really think about changing or altering a little bit, then we'll do that. I think looking for a way, as Simone talked about, in terms of it's a tactful way to say this.
Just spit it out.
Well, the last, there have probably been more people at the council meetings in the last couple of months than there have been in the last couple of years. Now, sometimes that is a good thing and sometimes it's not. But I think if people are beginning to become active in that activity, let's take advantage of that energy a little bit and say, where do we want to be as a community? I personally, I'm going to broaden it out outside of Pittsfield for a second. Central Maine is struggling. And I'm involved in a couple of other organizations in the area. And it's tough to get, and Pete's talked about it, when he talks about trying to hire people for Chimbro. They come up here, they're going to hire people like Ron or Vaughn's getting too old, but they're gonna hire younger people
You can't be
who want, a social life, they want to be able to go shopping, they want to go to have a drink after work and those kinds of things, and, that's not really available here. So, what is the key thing? And one of the groups is taking, what's one of the things that we need in the area? And it's becoming an older population, right, Brett?
Every day.
And that's a whole different need than a place like southern Maine. So, one of the things that if you take a look at there's been a couple of towns in the area that have changed their, some of their ordinances for building, and they're now allowing, what do they call it?
Small houses.
In-law apartments.
Oh, yeah.
Senior,
Accessory apartment, yeah.
what is it?
Accessory
Yeah.
apartment.
Accessory apartments, so the families could take care of their aging parents or aunts or uncles or whatever. To take a look at, and if we have those kinds of facilities available, that might help encourage people to come into the area here, because they're not really concerned about going to, I don't want to even mention the movies, because that is a whole different issue at this point. But, to do some things. But again, if you're going to do that, you're going to have senior type. We've got the hospital in town. That is such a plus for a lot of people. But we're here every day, but we don't see it the same way as somebody who's older who says, geez, I want to move to the town where there is a hospital, so if I'm having chest pains, I can call 911 and get some, that's unbelievable. Those are the kinds of things that maybe we need to start marketing and selling in addition to some other things.
Well, it might be some other things too, and I just wonder, based on zoning and so forth, and see, maybe you can provide some insight. I was at a meeting Tuesday of last week with a developer up in Holden who had been looking at a property up by the hospital at developing it, and apparently and who knows what the details were, but that the setbacks were too far on those properties, so they couldn't fit a garage on there, and they were planning on putting in a multifamily development up there.
Yeah. Those lots can be combined.
What's that?
Those lots can be combined.
Yeah.
I mean, if you reconfigure them, then that's a site plan review. But if you take two existing lots and join them together, I meant to say that's there'll be a subdivision change if you just move the property lines around. But if you take two existing lots and put them together, that doesn't require modification of your subdivision.
And
But we want to make that as easy as possible.
Right, and what ended in the result of that discussion was that whatever it came across as was that it was easier to develop a property in Hamden, and so they're putting a $9 million development in Hamden that they're looking at having us put solar on all of the various homes in. So, I mean, there's some of those pieces of just trying to figure out like where those bottlenecks might be, whether it's the perception of what we are communicating, or whether it is the if the site plan process looks too onerous for that, or or doing the subdivision. Yeah, so there are multiple layers on that. It'd be interesting to kind of find out what those other pieces are. We wouldn't even know, right?
I've had several meetings with a gentleman that Pete, or his last name is Snow anyway.
Yeah, Carl.
And the last I knew that he had talked about the fact that those lots were, setbacks and so forth on them were too restrictive. But I said, the lots are too small anyway, I would think. And if you combine them, that's easy to do. But if you start reconfiguring the whole thing, then that's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
I think we need to focus on possibilities.
But I also think he had some problems getting clear title to that situation as well.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just posing out there that there are, as we talk about those infrastructure pieces, those are things that we have control over as a planning board, and trying to figure out, like, you know, it may be worthwhile to bring a realtor into the planning, you know, some realtors into the planning board, because we're going to need to have a significant change in the housing stock of this community if we're going to have what you are looking for.
Yep.
And it's probably the diametric opposite of what we have. And so I think we need, if we're going to do that, I don't know whether it's worthwhile for us to have an informational session with realtors or developers that work in these communities to hear input on what are some of the barriers in the areas where we do have buildable lots that aren't being built, or, you know, as far as redoing housing stock that's there. I mean,
But I'm going to go back to Simone's point that she made earlier, and that's why I think we need to get some feedback from the community as well in terms of what would people in town like to see. And, you know, if they're talking about what we want, you know, the topic of discussion right now is, yeah, property taxes are going to go up. Why? I'm not even going to address that at this point. But are there ways to keep property taxes? Yeah, there are. But that's going to be part of a plan. And you've got to bring new things, new people, new places, new businesses to town. Otherwise, you know, we're just going to kind of float down the river.
Jan, in the comprehensive plan, I haven't seen it, but you said that it was developed because it was required by the state and there was a chance money might come. Was there, in those plans, in those items on the list, is there an idea of what the cost is to those goals?
No.
Or a cost or benefit, you know?
Interesting question, because I would interpret those as two different things. Cost is one thing, but the benefit of having paved roads without potholes in them is a real benefit.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
I was thinking more of
Yeah,
like bringing in businesses and, you know.
But that's all related to it.
It is.
Plus what's underneath those roads.
Oh,
Water, sewer,
exactly.
yeah.
Oh, definitely.
Stuff you don't see.
Right.
You know, and I'll go out on a limb and I'll make a prediction, and people kind of joke about it and those kinds of things. But one of the major projects is the boat launch at Mill Pond. Okay. So what do we got? Parks, paths, water. If we have the ability to get people to use the water, the ponds and so forth, no, it's not going to happen by October of this year, but you're going to see maybe people stopping by and saying, you know, geez, nice little town, it's not crowded, I can find a place to park, I can plug my electric car in to get a charge while I go, you know, take a paddle up to Harlan if I want to. That's going to bring a whole different set of people with a different view of the world into town. Now, what are they're going to want to eat. They may even want a place to sleep. We won't go there, but they may, you know, it's going to bring the people that are going to come to town are going to determine what businesses are eventually end up here, not us or the council saying, well, I'd like to have these businesses in town, because we can have the best businesses in the world, and if nobody uses them, what good are they? So let people come in, see what we have, and we can kind of, that helps to direct the future, I think. So I really think that, you know, in Muddy Waters or whatever his name is over there, I mean, he's got something. Is it going to work? We don't know, but at least let's give it a try. Sorry about that. But
And there again, if we do have people that come in and enjoy a certain piece of Pittsfield, but we don't have the other piece they need, having a website to go to tell us what they're looking for might even help us looking at our comprehensive plan. And
it's interesting. I don't know how many of you know Joe, the guy that is the guy at Dunkin' Donuts.
That owned it?
Huh?
That owned
Well, it's one of the, whatever it is, but anyhow, what he's noticed over the last year since they put that in was that he won't say that business has dropped off in Newport, but what he will say is business has picked up here. And all of a sudden, people are saying, you know, is there a way, and they need to get some of the kids in there a map to show them where we are. But is there a way, if I'm here, do I have to go to Newport if I want to get to Greenville? Because I don't want to go through that crazy intersection up there. No, you don't have to go to Newport to do that. So all of a sudden, people are beginning to see that maybe if I stop here instead of there, and he said, that, you know, he's expecting, you know, a really significant change in traffic flow this summer, and people asking the questions. So,
Have they put a Dunkin' Donuts sign on the interstate yet?
no, and I meant to
That's
ask-
expensive, and I know, I remember talking with him about that. I think he says like $5,000 a year, can you imagine?
Wow.
But, you know, if it pulls people in there, like Newport, you know, that brings a lot of traffic in. And people will figure it out eventually, because a lot of people come through, they're the same people, and they'll figure out there's one in Pittsfield, and you'll avoid Newport to go through Pittsfield if you want to go to Dunkin' Donuts.
Oh, it's way easier for you now.
Of course it is.
Yeah, but when people figure out how they can get to where they want to go and not go through
Right.
Newport, that'll catch on.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen overnight. It'll take a little while, and then, you know, we'll see what happens. But you gotta market that kind of stuff also.
And there's something else we've talked about quite a bit is when you first drive into this town or drive around town and the blight you see in some of these houses, I mean, that's an obvious issue that needs to be addressed.
Terrible.
You know, and that may be coming down to what we can, you know, zoning, or how we can, the ordinance as far as what you can build and when you can build it, and if you start getting into these smaller homes, because that's the future, I think.
Yep.
With these bigger houses, you can only fix and renovate so many times. And millennials aren't building homes or building big homes, and they're not having big families. I mean, I think that's an obvious.
Do we, talking about Dunkin' Donuts and the intersection down there, do we have any authority or avenue to ask for a review of possibly putting in a light?
It's a
Because
state, it's a state road.
Every
so-
time I go through there, I just think if this gets any busier, it's gonna be a
The
problem.
next developer, Ron's gonna get tagged with that, I bet.
Right, yeah.
Because, because we brought that up.
Yeah, we
when
discussed
used
quite a
Dunkin'
bit
Donuts,
when
and
that was going in.
They did a traffic count, and I don't believe it, you know, I worked there, and I said, boy, this is just a matter of time.
But has there ever been an accident there?
Yeah.
Yes,
There's been
there
a pretty major accident there the last.
I've never
yeah.
seen, I've never even seen a close call, so I'm
And if we-
amazed at how well people.
If we anticipate that the next developer is gonna have a problem with that, if there was some mechanism for us to get ahead of it and say, you know what, we guess that there's probably gonna be an issue here. Can we look at doing another traffic study or something? And
Well, there'll have to be a major intersection redesign, and they'll get all those places dumped
I
into that
know.
right there, and that's dangerous.
Okay. I just gotta say, when we're talking about this requires accountability from our board, right? Like, I brought this up when we talked about Dunkin' Donuts, and we had a traffic study that was done by Dunkin' Donuts that didn't show generated trips from Irving across. I had Catherine sit in the audience saying that she had a different document upstairs that said that they counted those. And I made the recommendation at that time, based on talking with civil engineers I went to school with, who recommended that the town have their own engineer look at that. And so we have to, I know that there is a desire for us to see development in the town, but we have to do it in a responsible manner, and we have to do it in a smart way. Because I'm glad to hear it now, but when that was brought up at that time, we basically threw it out, and we didn't pay attention to it. And we have to make decisions based on facts, and if I left that meeting very frustrated, and I think
But-
we have to.
There was a professional engineer that question was directed to.
Right.
But he was working for the owner as well. but he's stamping that, saying that it's approved and it met the requirements.
Right, but the piece in this is that there are, just like if we go in to take a real estate deal, right? If we were the town going in to take a real estate deal, we're going to take an attorney in that represents us, because I'm not, like, I work on projects all of the time, and the desire once you start getting things moving is to get the project done, right? So like, you count the trips that are there, the prediction. We know this town better than an engineer who's going to come in and study this town, right? So you sit, when we do traffic counts, and we did this freshman year in college, you sit at an intersection and you basically do a ticker for who's going right, who's going straight, who's going left, right? That's just data that's there. We have to act on behalf of the community to know that, okay, we know we just expanded this gas station here and we're starting to see increased traffic there, and to catch that. Because I can tell you right now, I know a lot about solar, but I don't go into a project, pitching a solar project, thinking I know everything about solar, because I have to understand, what that customer sees in that house, what's happening in that neighborhood, a variety of things that are happening with development, what's going on with that municipality versus other municipalities. There's a certain humility that you kind of bring into the table. I had an engineer from DOT sit in a meeting with us regarding the Somerset Avenue redo. This is an easy mill and fill. We're just going to go through, we're going to cruise, and we're going to take care of this, right? And all of the elevations were wrong. You've got, DOT was here time after time after time with this. And at that point, I studied to be an engineer. You don't come in, if you come in, all of you know this in the professions that you're in. The person who comes in talking the loudest and the most sure of themselves is probably the person that is hiding their insecurity in that piece. And it's our responsibility on behalf of the town to call that out, right? Not necessarily to say, settle down, youngin', but to say, we recognize that, okay, if you're taking this easy, thinking this is a simple mill and fill, up through that, there should be concerns about the level of detail that you're taking into this. This goes, it's not just the elevations of there were the elevations, right, of the caps there and how water was drained. Down here on Main Street, they still haven't fixed it. They initially had lined that intersection.
We talking about Somerset Avenue?
Yeah, the one that went up all the way.
Right.
We just have to, and this is what it gets to the comprehensive plan. Like, it's fine if we put it on paper, but the accountability piece is what meets the road. And there's some things that we shouldn't be doing as representatives of the town government, right? Like, there are places here where we talk about economic development where there are limitations for what the town can do, and we say we would like for the town to do a better job of maybe public-private partnerships or things along those lines. Like Skowhegan, it's not their town government that's helped making that happen. It is collaboration with Main Street Skowhegan and people bringing these pieces together. So I think while I'm a Yankee and I was grown up for a lot of my time being like nice and not saying things, like sometimes it's being like rude and incorrect to not say the right thing, right? So by saying nice and not holding people accountable, we're setting our expectations low and we're setting that person up for failure later on. And we're seeing it across the town right now in terms of the accountability and expectation. So I would say from the planning board's perspective, we're going to see it. And I'll say this now with two of them, me having monetary potential benefit in, is like when these things come through, that we're consistent with it and we hold people to the standards that are our charge, and we expect documentation for it. I was frustrated that we didn't hear about the fact that we were going to use TIF money to pave sidewalks to Dunkin' Donuts, and that there were 3 people who were providing input into the whole process during that knew that and didn't share it with us, right? Like, there are expectations that we should have that if we're going to be a board making decisions on behalf of the town, that we demand those things, and not in a rude way, just in a like, if we're going to make an educated decision, we need to have it. Sorry, I'm on.
If you want to see something interesting and you're really looking for something to do, pour yourself a glass of wine and go to Skowhegan Main Street website. Unbelievable. Now, we could never be like that, obviously, because it's a different environment, but they've got some really interesting things happening over there. And,
We shouldn't sell ourselves short. We could easily do what Skowhegan does and more.
we could do some of them. Actually, I think we can do more because we're a little bit smaller.
Quite a bit smaller.
Quite a bit smaller, but they've got some really, but again, there's a vision, and that's the way it goes.
Skowhegan doesn't issue building permits, so I thought that was, interesting that they don't.
I had to keep track of what's going on as far as taxing.
That's not a requirement to issue a permit?
Well, that's what I'm told, Skowhegan doesn't.
Interesting. Any other business to take care of tonight? Thank you for your time. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor, shout out aye.
Aye.
Stay warm. Watch out for the snow on Tuesday night and Wednesday.
Brent will be up early. You'll be up earlier, you won't go to bed at all.
I'm trying to go on vacation Wednesday.
Is that you are, or?
Yeah, I'm trying to.
Oh.
Or is it because it's snow? Because it's supposed to know. But it goes somewhere. Snow.
You can have that.
Jet's all over it. So Chimble's got infinite resources. They can find anybody.
No, Gene, he has that.
Do not know.
You drive truck all the time, you drive plow, right?
One to 7 and one to 3 in the afternoon.
Well, you should.
Steve, I have a collection of the papers from the board because I'm nervous about just putting them in the trash.
Yeah.
Any
If you want to
ideas?
bring them in here, we'll spread them.
Okay. Perfect. I'll
Do you
fill
have
it.
a question for you on the site plan?
This has your name, is that it? Yeah.
So the Heather and Mike's use of the building, right? I'm kind of intrigued to hear the interpretation of number 5 as it relates to their needing to pull a site plan for that development.
And maybe it's just.
I'm sorry,
For Mike and Heather Hollins for the brewery.
Yeah.
Can you give me an interpretation on number 5 as to why it would require a site plan based upon that?
Because I think it would increase the intensity of
What was
operations.
highlighted,
Impact.
italicized.
You said some things here that I can explain.
And I wasn't sure if I should go ahead.
I got the, I got an email last night.
Yep.
And I haven't had a chance to deal with it at all.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to check to see, because it seems like
But I don't have any official classes.
such that it has to increase the intensity of off-site impact.
Right.
So, and if we go to
The word
the,
is strangely, isn't it?
And I thought-
well, no, I think it's clear. It's basically saying if it's a change of non-residential use such that it increases demand on the property.
Yeah,
it should
sewer,
be,
water.
right?
Yeah.
So I guess the question is, and if you go through all, you know the details of all the site plan review, it won't be, there's going to be nothing about anything having to do with wastewater, stormwater, or any of those pieces. It's really going to be the ones that I can, right, the only ones I can see.
Wastewater would be something.
Right. So that's the one, so it would be basically the town utilities, so it would be water and wastewater, right? So if Scott Noble writes a letter that says, I think they're gonna use 255 gallons, it's a waste on average. If he writes a letter that says, this is no more than that building is designed.
Somebody's going in there.
Yeah. And then you have from a waste, there's really no, we have a dumpster out there now that they use, right? So if that's it, the other piece would be traffic. And if the traffic's no more quantified, right? If there's no more quantity of traffic than there would be in that space, which is somewhat limited by parking spaces and also by other pieces, right? Those are the only three intensive pieces. So technically, if they came into a pre-meeting, if they came into a pre-application process and said, we have this isn't going to cause any more. I mean, it used to be a usage of schools, right?
No, it's
So
been
the
quite a
water
while.
usage
What are you
is
thinking
not gonna
about?
be
I
any-
mean, it was on.
I mean, the water usage isn't going to be anything. The waste and that other piece.
I don't know how much weight. I was curious.
All of any of
I
their,
think if we also just take off the part where it's not. but-
they're actually reducing the organic waste of the building now, likely because the only thing that we recycle everything that we can, and then we've got a small dumpster.
Yes.
And then we do organics end up in our
So,
trash
for me,
flow. They're going to
manufacturer,
probably
huh?
take all of
That's
their
exciting.
organics out. That's what Maine Beer Company does. They actually have farms that pick up all of their spent grains and all of that. So I just wanted to chat because they're going to have a lot to take care of in a short period of time. And we've seen through the site plan review process that we have a very limited road that we can travel down based on how things are spelled out. So if they were to come in for if they came in next month with
So they're gonna put that in the basement.
with basically a pre-application meeting and said, we've talked to the town, and the water and sewer is not an issue. The
Because
traffic,
the basement probably
you
has
know,
the cafeteria too.
bond says that
Because
this
you
is
get those,
this.
get those letters to start it out with.
Yep, okay,
Because we're gonna require this a site plan,
Right.
it's required anyway.
right. Yep, okay. Yeah, that's what I wanted to check, just so I was make sure I was
The thing that worries me a
understanding
bit though is ADA access and what you're gonna have for restrooms and all of that.
that. That comes with their business license though.
Yeah,
That
but,
that goes with their business
right,
license, not with their,
but I just hope I understand that.
they have an architect that they're working
Once the
with.
depot gets remodeled.
That is will be a third-party inspection.
Yep.
I'm not certified to approve
Yep.
the plans.
And that's good. That's the only ADA accessible stuff in the whole property, are those two rooms. That's why we've been holding off. What's that? So, yeah.
The third-party situation, though, it's required that the owner or the contractor hire that guy.
Yeah, they're going to. Yeah.
It gets back to your situation, doesn't it? With
Yeah, I mean,
engineers
that's,
working for the people that should be working for the town or something like that.
right, yeah, the town, and, you know, I'm totally good for, like I said, I think the planning board should take its roles and responsibilities and do with it what we're charged. We have a very limited scope of what we have authority over, and where we have that scope, we
can't
should.
ask for money to hire our own engineer in these situations,
So-
it's in the ordinance.
Yeah, so I think there are times when we should. I mean, that was brought up with the traffic engineer at that time. And if there was a thought that the brewery might cause some challenge, I would totally.
You know, we look at things as too difficult to do, projects for in Pittsfield, right? We're not business friendly. And yet, you're saying when we addressed Dunkin' Donuts, we should have hired an engineer, which would make it more complicated, not less.
Well, I think the
I don't know
comprehensive.
which side of the bench you're standing on.
Well, I never say that about the comprehensive plan lays out pretty clearly the types of businesses that we should go out of our way to accommodate.
Yeah.
Dunkin' Donuts is not one of them. It's actually the one that they stayed out of the comprehensive plan that we should be wary of, which are businesses that have no investment in the community or are looking at the town only as a means to make money, which is basically what Dunkin' Donuts did. They wouldn't come here if it wasn't to make money.
So there are organizations that would come in and not want to make money.
I have 4 businesses in this town that I don't really give a shit whether we make money or not.
You don't care whether you make money or not.
I've dumped $50,000 into that building. I'm never going to get out of it. It matters to me that my kids will have an opportunity to come back here and live if they choose to do it. That's it.
Did you get my email with utilities info from the depot? Okay, I'm gonna resend it to you tonight. I'm sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay. Did you send it to my business one?
I don't. I'd have to look at whatever.
Let me see,
I think I only have one email for you, so I'll resend it tonight. So.
Yeah, I don't have anything. I don't have anything. But yeah, send it to me. I'll take a look at it. So, sweet.
I didn't mean to draw you.
Oh, what's that with the? Oh, no, it's all right. It's, no, you don't drop me in. The thing that pulled me in was having 3 people who